What is up, guys? Hope you're all doing well. In this video, I wanted to tell you how I lost my body fat, lost my belly, and got lean and have stayed lean consistently ever since. This video is really meant for people who aren't really interested in tracking calories and just want a formulaic, pretty brain dead system to get lean, get in shape, and stay lean, most importantly. So I'll tell you a quick story. It was like a year or two ago, probably like 2023-ish, when I was in a pretty good spot in my fitness journey. I had definitely made a lot of progress, but I had kind of gone in and out of these phases of being like relatively lean, but then kind of like rebounding, gaining some weight, and then having to lose it back. And it would kind of put me in this weird spot where I was yo-yoing back and forth, and it was pretty exhausting because I never fully was able to finish my cut, but I was also like making progress, and it was really fatiguing, like trying to stay consistently in a cut, but then you're like, oh man, I just reset a lot of my progress. So then you're just kind of like in this infinite cutting loop where you're technically cutting, but you're not really losing much weight. So you're just swinging back and forth. It's really mentally draining. And what I realized was the reason that this was happening is because I only cared about being in a caloric deficit. And at this point, I know you might be saying, but Alex, doesn't the only thing that matter is calories in versus calories out? Kind of, but also not really. Let me explain. It is true, in order to lose weight, you do need to be in a caloric deficit, technically. But in my opinion, not all calories are created equal. And the reason why I think I was really struggling with this yo-yo dieting is because I only focused on the calories in, calories out versus the actual quality of the food that I was eating. And so even though I was able to most of the time be in a caloric deficit, I was still eating like highly processed sugary foods, which was causing inflammation in my body. And also it was keeping me addicted to things like sugar and ultra processed carbs. And so it's really hard because if you're keeping yourself, addicted to sugar and stuff, when you finally do cheat on your diet a little bit, it's a lot harder to keep it dialed in, right? Like I would basically do really, really good for 6 days out of the 7 days. And then on the 7th day, I would go and eat like an entire box of donuts. And that was because I was having massive sugar cravings, because in my diet, I was still incorporating like highly processed carbs, highly processed sugars and stuff like that too. Yeah, I was still addicted to all that stuff. And so when I finally did cheat on my diet, it would just be total chaos, madness, like ridiculous amounts of calories, ridiculous amounts of sugar. So what I have done to combat this, because I decided one day, like I don't want to keep doing this loop where I'm in a caloric deficit and then, on Sunday or whatever day of the week, I reset all my progress because I just totally binged ate because I was having crazy cravings. So what I did was I actually changed the quality of my diet. Here's what I would recommend you do if you don't want to count calories, and if you pretty much just want to have like a brain dead formulaic approach to getting lean, is I would switch your diet over to something relatively close to an animal-based diet. And if you've ever heard that term before, maybe this is your first time hearing the word animal-based diet, what that means is essentially it's just stuff that your ancestors would have been able to eat or would have eaten before, like, the modern day. So things like red meat, fruit, eggs, dairy, that kind of stuff that doesn't really incorporate ultra high, super processed sugars and carbs that you see in a lot of modern day foods. And what it really prioritizes is things like red meat and eggs and fruit and dairy. So, those are just a few things, but like, I'll have like some milk and some eggs in the morning. And for lunch, I'll have some fruit and some ground beef. And then for dinner, I'll have like a steak with some fruit. And I feel phenomenal eating that way. But the reason why I think this works is because it's cutting out the processed sugar and the processed carbs, because your body really is a machine of habit. If you teach it to crave things like sugar, if you give it a lot of processed sugar, processed carbs, it's going to continue to want those things. But if you just put in like clean, sources of food in your body, you'll notice that the cravings start to go away. So the difference now is it's just way more of like a baseline. I don't have like insane cravings for donuts or ice cream or cookies, because that's just not really incorporated in my diet anymore. And I feel better without that stuff. I'm not saying you can't have that every once in a while, but when you start eating like an animal-based diet, what you'll notice is your cravings for that stuff actually goes down. It's not like I don't feel like I'm suppressed or repressing my desire for delicious foods. I just don't really have the cravings for them anymore. So here's what I think you can expect if you do switch over to like a cleaner, more animal-based diet, is for the very first week after switching over from whatever you're eating now, like let's say you're eating a lot of processed sugars and processed carbs, the very first week of switching over, you'll have those cravings. But what I've noticed is about 7 days after of just clean eating, the cravings will start to go away. There's a certain point, and you can let me know if you guys relate to this, there's a certain point where you start thinking about those foods, you're like, oh, maybe I could have a cheat meal today. Do I want cookies? Do I want ice cream? And it doesn't even sound that appetizing. Like if I think about going and getting some brownies right now, that doesn't sound super good to me, to be honest. What sounds good to me is, I don't know, like a steak, or like, I don't know, just some red meat, some clean food. If I want some sugar, I'll have like some honey and some fruit, and that's pretty much good for me. So that would be my biggest take on how to lose your belly, how to get lean, and how to keep that leanness and really consistently stay that way. I think a lot of times what people assume is that it's going to be like this thing where you just, you hit a certain weight and then you can go back to eating the way that you used to be eating. But that's not really sustainable. What will happen then is you'll lose, even if you do accomplish your goal and you lose your weight, but then you just go right back to eating all the processed stuff, you'll just gain all the body weight back. And that's not what we want. We want to stay in good shape for the long term. So that'd be my recommendation. I hope that makes sense. It's really not as hard as people make it seem. It's just like eating the foods you already know you should be eating, stuff that's actually fuel and good for you. Yeah, we'll see. And then this is just a little bit of a side note, but as per anything, accomplishing any sort of goal, you're gonna need to be disciplined. There are gonna be times where you're feeling hungry and you're gonna have to deny yourself certain things, or maybe you do have cravings for sugar, or maybe in that transition period from when you're going to what you're eating right now, like all the processed stuff, to more of an animal-based diet, when you're having cravings for sugar because your body's like, hey, what the heck, dude? What happened to all that delicious processed sugar? Where you're gonna have a little bit of discipline. As per anything in life, and this isn't just fitness, but any sort of goal you want to accomplish, there's always gonna be a level of sacrifice and discipline involved. There are no cheats, but the good news is that you can do it. Anyone can do it. So yeah, hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.